call this meeting to order.
I'm done. Sorry, it's 6.
No, this is important.
Shane's walking.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, Tuesday, February 27th, 2018, 6 p.m. Are there any additions to the agenda, routine administrative matters and/or pressing matters that will require ratification in a future meeting? Nothing? Oh,
I really
sorry,
think
Deb.
we should talk about the budget status, because it doesn't have an impact on what we talked about before.
Year to date?
I have a question on that, so.
The year to date?
Yes.
Year to date, budget status for FY18. So I would like to have that on there somewhere if you could.
I think we should put it as number 3. You know, we should be able to get through, because then we'll have gone through the cash flow, and
Yeah.
that's right, I did get your email. That's good. Year to date. All right, we'll add that in. Anything further? Right, then we have the minutes of February 13th. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, is there any public comment for items not on the agenda? All right, and Shane, do you have anything to report?
As far as the budget schedule for FY19 budget, it's planned for me to have my first draft ready this week. We've been working on it, and we're getting there. Department heads have done a very nice job of putting together their budgets, and we just need to roll that through. Tomorrow I'll be going to Montpelier to testify in front of the Senate Transportation Committee. And that has to do with the issue of overweight vehicles in the downtown. So I've submitted testimony, and I'll go there. I know that someone from the DMV permitting office will be there. I think someone from the trucking industry has been invited as well, and we'll see how it goes. You know, it was very nice of them to take this up so quickly after I actually asked for it just last week.
Yeah.
Again, most of our time has been working on not only the cash flows that we've talked about in a little while, but budget, and then we're getting ready for town meeting, of course, next week. So we've been busy doing that. That's about all I have to report.
All right, well, thank you, Shane.
Yeah.
All right. First item is there any update for a parking enforcement officer?
I've asked Chief Lake to put his thinking cap on and kind of think it through. And while we're still working on this, and again, as I mentioned, we're really spending a lot of time on budget right now and not on some other things. But some of the pros and cons. Obviously, it's free labor, and the individual would work at the whim of the chief. But once you figure in some liability issues, it's not necessarily free labor in some ways to look at it. But there were some concerns put forward by the chief in that with volunteer labor, there's while again it is quite inexpensive, as you know, there are some issues with whether or not someone is legally able to do enforcement, some accountability issues, and there's insofar as being a volunteer, someone could just literally walk off the job if they like at any time. Not that they would, given the quality of people we would be looking at. But anyway, we are still working on it, but again, the budget has been taking precedence over some of those implementation projects.
Okay.
I'd just like to say that anyone who has to be paid or unpaid has to sign the same kind of documentation to cover themselves, whether they're paid or unpaid. And anyone who's a paid employee can walk off the job whenever they feel like it too, even though they shouldn't. And if they've signed an obligation, they've signed an obligation. It doesn't matter whether you pay them a paycheck or you don't. That being said, I would just like this to be taken care of as soon as possible. We're seeing, considering we're coming into the spring season, there's less snow in the village. People are wanting to see, merchants are wanting to see more movability and so on and so forth.
Yeah, there are some expenses related to it, uniform, whatever equipment. Would this person have a vehicle? Probably not, so they'd be doing a lot of walking. There's just other things we need to be concentrating on. Again, other things have been taking priority at this time.
Okay, well, thanks for
But
the update.
we'll report back, and I'll have the chief run some more information. But I think I did report last time, there were some concerns from VLCT as well as our attorney having to do with the volunteer piece of it, and we're going to look further into that.
All right, thank you, Shane.
Yep.
All right, next we have the Finance Department, the cash flow analysis for water, wastewater.
Well, Ron is here, he's been working diligently on this, and we did send out some information the other day, and we have, did you provide the new handout? Okay, we have a new version of primarily the wastewater, actually only the wastewater at this time, because that's the one that's been of most concern to us. But with that, I'll hand it over to Ron to go over some of this.
Okay, first thing I did, there was a correction to FY17
Is this
in
gonna
our
be,
books.
just, is it gonna be, are we just gonna look at wastewater first then, the corrections?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, so, sorry.
Okay, if you go to page 2, you'll see a yellow highlight on depreciation. On previous reports that you received, someone, when they booked that entry, they booked it as a negative 537,000. So I finally corrected that, and basically the error was $1,075,000, because I had to zero off the negative number and then record the actual number.
I'm sorry, you say page 2?
What line was
Yep.
that?
Okay, it's under buildings and plant, right?
Yep.
Okay, so it's the bottom.
What's this?
If you look at previous status reports you received, you would see that being a negative number. And it distorted the, the net for that year. The audit report was correct. It's just someone made a mistake and booked it backwards. Anyhow. Okay, in 2018, you'll see year-to-date through almost to the end of February.
You
on page
3 now?
What's that?
Which page are you on?
Page 1.
Okay, sorry.
Yep. The year-to-date is through like February 24th, 25th for those transactions. And what I did is I took an estimate, and I discussed this with Rob, and we projected what the rest of 2018 would look like, both in revenues as well as expenses.
Are you looking at a particular line, or
What's that?
It's a column, really.
which column are we looking
FY.
at? Just the FY18?
Yeah, under 18, you have the fiscal year, well, there's a budget, an actual, and an estimated actual.
The estimated actual goes through year end.
Actually, the first column, instead of saying FY18 YTD, that should be budget, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Oh.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Can you explain why your first version of forgiveness of debt had 2,281,276, and now it's 0? Where'd the 2 million go?
Those items really are not, first of all, they're not budgeted items. The debt service is, but grants coming in, expenses going out for purchase of capital, those really reside on a different fund balance for fixed assets. It does not represent income nor expenditures. And from a cash flow position, you'll see that those numbers are recorded below cash from operations. So they're there, but they're on page 4. Any questions on 2019? We basically, you'll notice that revenues remain consistent. I did not try to increase revenues, because no matter what number I put in there, we would still have to figure out what a true rate increase needs to be.
Right.
So I just,
Yeah, by level funding, the amount to be raised by rates, we can figure out on the bottom line, what do we need, where do we need to be? I'm sorry, Rob.
but 2019 was increased over 2018 for actual happenings. You'll see a big jump on Walpole on the 4th line, USDA bond 1 and 2. It's $130,000 a year is their portion of the $421,000 payment. It's roughly, I think I calculated it at 30 to 33%, which is what their ratio has been averaging past year.
And since we mentioned that, how we, or where we're at with the information that they had requested from us.
Now that this is done, the cash flow, I can put together a memo to send to them. So I wanted to see what these numbers would be, especially Walpole's numbers. And Rob and I finally, got the accurate numbers.
Right.
So that will go out. I'll put the draft together tomorrow.
I think we were beyond, the 60 days or
They did get the agreement themselves.
They did get the agreement.
They had the agreement, and then they're waiting on the other piece, and then, most of it's done as of a week or two ago. It just needed to put some,
Right.
finalization of an
So I will
accuracy.
put it together tomorrow, and whether I sign it or Shane signs it, it'll go out this week. Any questions on the revenues?
So Walpole hasn't paid the final installments on FY18 because the budgeted amount of income was 110. The actual amount currently is 88,725.
They have one more payment.
One more payment.
Yep. The first quarter of this year would be their 4 payments. The second quarter, even though it's fiscal year 18, the second quarter gets billed after July. And that's been the way it's been going on for several years.
But we have some payment that we have to make
We
for
have
the loan in March, right?
Yes, and you'll see it on page 4 and page 3 in that brown box.
We're showing it for this year.
Right.
And that is only one payment.
Okay.
The subsequent years, it's 2 payments. The net between what we're paying of, I think it's like $420,000, and the 130 that Walpole is paying, it's basically $290,000 additional debt service starting in 2019. Okay, if you want, we can go down the expenditures. for 2018. If you have any questions on year-to-date numbers, please feel free to ask. I did print out some analysis, so I should hopefully have the answers for you.
I want to point out on the second page, if you recall that the board wanted to break out legal, engineering, audit, those sorts of things. So on page 2 on the left-hand side, you'll see, it's carried through into FY19. We have a new budget, we get rid of consulting, legal, and audit, and we create a legal services line, an accounting financial services line, and an engineering services line.
If you see XX at the end of the account number, that means the account has to be set up. So that'll be done this week also.
I think bottom line is we need to raise rates in a very, very big way. We raised rates 5% this year, and it hadn't been raised in 2 years, I think, prior to that. I had originally been under the impression that it was being raised every year in anticipation of these bonds hitting. But that hadn't been done. I guess the minimum was being lowered in order to spur additional income, but I think that was only like $6,000 a year of income. Yeah, so this is very troubling in that there was not much anticipation. I wasn't here at the time of particularly the wastewater bond a couple of years ago, but was there much in the way of discussion about what the impact was going to be?
Not that I recall.
Not the long term, certainly didn't know, it might have gone a different way.
Yeah,
And
and
that's-
this
I know
is-
that's what Jake's been talking about all along,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and this is big.
Yeah.
And maybe, again, you can talk about the bottom line. It's big.
If you look on page 3, it says net fund balance, but that's really net income or loss. That's what it's called in the audit report. We still have a fairly healthy fund balance in the wastewater. But if you go down, you can see for 2000, fiscal year 18, including depreciation of $576,000, we're projecting $811,000. And again, the almost $300,000 of that is the new debt service that we picked up,
But it also includes depreciation of how much?
$576.
Right, so if you pull the depreciation out of there, it's just a little bit more than what the bond payments are.
And if we move over to 19, 20, and 21, again, bear in mind, there's no rate increases in any of these years. That's got to be determined by the board. We're looking at basically what amounts to a little over $1 million deficit. Now, if we do increase rates, let's say we increase rates this year. Actually, March went out already, didn't it?
I don't know if it had, you would know, but it's, we did raise 5% this year. Well, go ahead.
So assuming we increase rates for next year, that rate increase will carry over to 2020 and 21, thereby reducing those deficits by that increase. But as you can see, a 5-10% increase is not going to cover those losses.
Yeah. So, can we wait until the next trustee meeting to do this, when we have all 5 members here?
Oh, yeah, we're still trying to refine this,
Yeah.
and we are still waiting to hear from RCAP on the rates, and possibly a new rate structure that will help us more efficiently raise what we need to raise. But yeah, I have no issues with that at all, but, you know, we need to double check on some of these things as well, but, and also maybe have another version that it, you know, shows zero deficit, and you get an idea of what kind of rates we're gonna have to look at. You know,
Yes.
what percentage, but it's gonna be an extremely high percentage to cover that, you know, 300 some odd thousand, almost $300,000 of net additional expense every year caused by those bonds. Now, what this also does do, you recall back in November, when there was a opportunity for funding from USDA of $1 million. It would be $1 million loan plus $425,000 grant, and that was going to be for Burton Blake, I think, and Mill Streets, because those water projects are already going full steam ahead on those, and the idea would be to put sewer in them as well. And we got this funding package to get a $425,000 grant, and the board wanted to hold off on that, not pull the trigger pending this information. We did build that into this. So on page 3, on page 3, in that brown box, the last of those. It says USDA bond, principal, and interest. You bring it over to the right side, you'll see it kicking in. Those would be the payments, roughly, you know, $49,000 going forward. So we did build that in case the board wanted to go forward with that project. Obviously, pull it out, and that's a $50,000 savings.
Is that funding still available to us at this point in time?
We're in line for it. The feds have not gone out and said, you know,
Right.
let us know.
Okay.
And so a decision on that needs to be made relatively soon, so when that time does come, we can say yes or no.
Yes, but if we're looking at, what, a 15% or 20% increase
20.
in water rates?
Yes, easy.
Why would we want to add another $50,000 burden to
Right,
that?
I understand that, but
Yeah.
the thing is that someday it's going to have to get done. And here's an opportunity to get it done, not only with, you know, the federal loan rates, which are good, but we get them anyway, but a $425,000 grant, and the ground is already opened up because of the water project. So, you know, dollar for dollar, it's a cheap way to do it. Unfortunately, it's all expensive.
So we change the rates, whatever they are.
Yeah.
The sewer user rate for Walpole, New Hampshire will increase the revenue, yes? Across the board, so they'll pay more.
Yes, they will
Just like
pay
we
more
do.
for the bonds. Yeah.
Right. Exactly, okay.
Yeah, so the $400 and some odd thousand loan payment gets reduced by roughly $130,000 by Walpole. So that's why we end up with a net of 300 and some odd thousand.
Jane, what do you attribute the, when you're projecting out the actuals for FY18, what's the 20% drop in that sewer charge? I mean, my assumption is that, you know, we, you know, budgeted out, and again, going back to it,
Which line item?
I'm looking at the current sewer charges
Okay.
for FY18.
Top. Yeah.
So,
Well,
we're 100,000 off from budget.
I know, that's a lot lower than 572, 739, yeah.
Right.
well, I talked to Rob on these numbers, and you'll notice the budget in 15 was 588 versus 471 actual.
Right.
You know, so I basically, and it holds fiscal year 17,
It does.
we came down
Yeah.
with a more reasonable, but for some reason,
Went back up
18 went
18.
up, and 19
Okay.
went up.
19
and-
stays the same.
Well,
That's just
Yeah,
projected
to-
at
right.
the same rate, yeah.
yeah. Now, I'm recommending that realistically, we should, before any rate increase, we should consider, is it truly 572 going to be the target? Or is it going to get down to 500,000, like it has been?
Yeah.
What-
Yeah.
Is it part of it because the first payment in this fiscal year was under the old rates, wasn't it?
These,
The first accrued
when did,
payment.
well, I'm not sure when,
Well, didn't you say earlier, and I think it's true, that the fourth payment billed from this year
oh, the.
doesn't come in until July?
Yeah, there's sewer usage and the bond payments.
Right, so it's behind.
Yeah, we're in the arrears one
Right.
quarter, but now that we've been on that cycle, we're still getting four quarters built, billed in each fiscal year.
But the rate didn't kick in until the second payment.
And,
Second payment received in this fiscal year.
yeah, it would have been the third quarter,
Right.
which actually was recorded in the fourth quarter. If you turn your attention to page 4, you can see a basic cash flow statement. The starting point was with the operating income or loss off of page 3. And we, for 18, 19 through 21, we don't have any debt forgiveness, bond proceeds, et cetera. So those are all zero. You'll see the bond down below in the financing section. The next, then, since depreciation is a non-cash expense, we recorded, or we added back depreciation. You can see 573, then 741, 741, 741. Bear in mind that we're still working on the water cash flow. So there'll be some, more accurate calculations in the coming week. You'll also see on the second section, there's a grant of $425,000. And then there's a bond or a loan of $104,000. That represents the money coming in under the water project.
Which column is that? I'm sorry.
If you look under 19.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And then just below that, you'll see the expenditure of the project of a minus $1,429,000. So from a cash flow point of view, they net each other out to zero. The debt service is what actually affects our cash flow going forward. And then we subtract out or we reduce it by the principal and the interest on the current debt. So what this says for 19 is we have a cash shortage of $1 million based upon the current numbers.
That's on the sewer side.
Yes.
And you're, without or pending board approval, your professional estimate for the information we have available now would be looking at 20% increases in the water rates and maybe as much as 15% in the sewers rates?
Reverse that.
I'd say much,
I'd
I'd
say
say
reverse
more than
that.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reverse it. Take it up.
15% in the sewer rates will raise about $100,000.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking some serious 25%, if not higher, and it's,
A serious problem.
Now, the septage should come back in 2019, because that'll be a full year. And Rob believes he'll get back up to the 136 target. But you'll see in 15 and 16, we actually exceeded that number. So it just depends upon how quick our past customers come back. Not a pretty sight, unfortunately. Questions,
Comments?
comments?
It's a hell of a hit for people in this community.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm just trying to figure out what the discussion was a few years ago.
The previous manager did not lay it out like this, and this is when we would start to see the payback process and what we have to do to increase revenue. Yes, there was discussion, minor discussion about we were doing like a percentage increase plus reducing the base rate in order to bring more in, but it wasn't significant enough for someone who could project out the next few years, and when we actually started paying the bonds back, what it would take and what kind of a hit we would take. That should have been something that would have been laid out.
I mean, I'm surprised that, and I can't find it in any of our paperwork, for the bond, that a cash flow projection wasn't done back at this time. Would it have made a difference in the vote? Who knows? But at least you would have been able to see what it could turn into.
Well, having sat on both tables, sitting from a select board standpoint, there was some discussion of the Grizzle Drive and doing the water and a sewer project and/or,
Yeah.
not having this information at that time,
Yeah.
Well, one of the things to bear in mind is that this work would had to have been done. We can't just let a wastewater treatment plant go to pot and
Right.
seed, and you can't do, or pump stations also. So we did bond this as a village, but, these two projects, but you also received, $3 million
Just shy
of
of-
grants
yeah.
as well. So it's,
Yeah.
it was, the blow was softened there, but this is stuff you have to do it. I mean, in order to maintain a wastewater treatment facility, you have to invest in it over time.
I would certainly say that, yeah, we're ahead of the curve in the 20-year plan,
But-
but I'm not so
But-
sure.
But there was
Yeah.
a major problem in information to the boards. And really this falls back on our shoulders, is that we
Yeah.
didn't see this.
The increase wouldn't be so high.
We
to
would have been
consider now
increasing,
if it had
right.
been meted out over the last few years.
This is a failure on our part, that we didn't prepare for this.
Mm.
The work needed to be done, but, it's-
Yeah, it was going to get done, it had to get done at some point, and then this is just, now it's time to pay up. And it's unfortunate, but it is, and it's an obligation for many years to come, too.
okay, well, is there anything further? Move on to the,
No. Guess
Just-
we'll see a more
Sobering enough.
complete version
Yeah,
next time.
and
Yeah.
we'll hone also the numbers on the water side, which is not as bad, but it's not good,
Still
because
there.
there's an $8 million bond from there.
Right.
So, yeah, it's not good.
Let's get ahead of
No,
that.
you said no indication of any cash flow analysis before
On the water,
on water or sewer.
Yeah.
I was looking around for the information on the bond votes, and I haven't seen
I
it.
mean, I recall a conversation about, maybe increasing the sewer rates to an extent, and where I think 15% was a recollection that I recall, but definitely wasn't presented like this. So I would imagine, no press here tonight, but I imagine once this, people are watching tonight, it'll be a wake-up call.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is something that has been in the works for a while, and
This has been years in the making, and it's,
yeah. And we hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's, I applaud Jigs for moving on getting this work done, and for Ron for getting it done finally, and so it's not good news, but it's necessary information for the village trustees.
so do we want to go over water tonight? Just as it was, this one hasn't been changed since it was circulated, but.
It's not done yet, is it?
No, water's not.
It's not fully done. I'm still verifying the numbers, and I need to fill the page 4 to show the true cash flow.
And the page 4, the numbers on the left-hand side of that page are directly, correct me if I'm wrong, directly from the audits.
Yes,
Yeah, those are numbers directly from, transplanted from the audit.
15, 16, and 17 are from the audit reports.
All right, then. And we should discuss rates when all 5 of us are here, so.
Yeah, so make sure we get a solid picture of it too.
Yeah.
So I'll plan on, I guess, in 2 weeks,
Yep.
just further, work on this
Yeah.
for both cash flows and
Yeah, we'll look to get it out next Thursday for the meeting. Is that what's the next meeting? 13th?
Yes. So then we just have the added item of year-to-date budget status.
I ran off copies of those that are upstairs. Would you like me to get them?
I printed a copy, I'm good, but, yeah.
Or is there many things, or just 1 or 2 we could speak of?
My thinking is, back to that one item,
Okay.
which was, without having to go to the account, because you guys don't have your copies, the union negotiations legal, where we put the $30,000 that we paid to the firefighters for the settlement, the
Right.
first part of the settlement, in there. And I truly believe, despite the fact that we aren't taxing them, that it should actually be reflected in an account that would probably need to be created, since we have to do this twice, in the fire department's budget. I really believe it should be there, so it's accurately reflective of what we've had to pay for the fire department for this fiscal year. And they do a 1099 or whatever, but it should show in the fire department's budget and not under the professional services budget. And it's a simple transaction of moving it to create an account that's in the fire department budget area to cover that, and we'll have to do it again for 2019. And that's it. I'd just like to see it where it belongs, in that department.
Again, I have no issues with that at
You have no
all. It's
issues
just
with that. That's all.
Well, I just wanted to make sure
Yes,
that it was clear that it was not
wasn't
wages.
listed as a
anyway.
wage,
Right.
right.
It was simply settlement.
And that would be fine. It just shows to the public clearly, it doesn't go into legal and they go, oh my God, it's Ray's fault.
Oh, it is Ray's fault.
It is Ray's fault, it's always.
Fine.
I'm gonna blame somebody, he gets paid for it, so yeah. But that it goes where it actually would show, which is, this is what it took to create a smooth running process for the fire department. It's there, next year, the last payment will be there, and we're done.
Makes sense to me.
That's my only,
And actually, budgetarily, we'll accrue all of it this year anyway.
right,
In this-
we'll
this
do it
fiscal
this year,
year.
yep.
Yeah, as an obligation.
So if it shows
So-
there, it looks like it's
It
appropriate.
looks better. Yeah.
But
You're right.
the public knows what it
Good point.
is.
Yeah, we will take care of that.
Thank you. That was my only big problem there.
All
I
right.
know there's some other issues you're still working on that we had in the budget from the beginning of the month.
Yeah, again, we've been working on the budget and the cash flows, and we were waiting on, till the 13th, or between now and the 13th to get all those other ones done that we've discussed in the past. But we have taken care of the Trans-Canada payment one.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I talked to Jigs today when he called me. I said
He was very happy when I spoke to him.
So that was my only item on the budget.
All right. I don't have anything specific at this time. Anyone else before we move on? All right, any comments on the overtime and comp time reports? That's all in order to me. The next would just be agenda items for next trustees meeting if there's no comments.
Right.
All right, so we have discussion of water and sewer rates,
Yeah.
Parking enforcement.
parking
officer
enforcement
day.
update.
Do you think that the ordinance committee will have that available? I think we're down to the last tiny item that we should be able to present at next meeting. You don't think
I
so?
sincerely hope so. I mean,
Could we tentatively put it on there and scratch it if we
yes,
aren't ready?
actually, let's go ahead and do that.
The motor vehicle and parking ordinances, yes. I thought that's it.
Anything else?
I think we ought to discuss appointment of a village moderator
Yes.
pro tem.
Oh, yes,
Oh, yes.
certainly. There was an ad out, right? I mean, to make an announcement about it. Did it cover the village and town, or just the town?
There were two separate ones.
Two separate ones,
There was
okay.
one also.
All right.
Okay. So with appointments, that's it for now. All right. The joint board, I don't think there's much on there at the moment. I don't have anything further. We have the orders, bills, and warrants.
Make a motion, we approve the orders, bills, and warrants.
Second.
All right, do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Good.
Good night, thank you.
So other business?
Just the,
Oh, of course, Ron.
How did I miss out?
I know nobody knew this, but today I turned 66, so I'm Social Security eligible. At 100%. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Keep it in mind.
Shane, do you have, there is need for executive session tonight, but
Yeah.
any other business?
No.
First. Stephanie?
Yep, I just want to remind everybody out there in TV land and in the community that the annual Rockingham Town Meeting be Monday, March 5th, the Opera House here, Bellows Falls Opera House, 7 p.m., and then all-day balloting on Tuesday, March 6th, from 9 to 7 at the Masonic Temple. So get out there and exercise your right to vote.
All right. I have one item. I'm told I don't have to say anything, but I feel I should. With town meeting happening, the village meeting in May, I won't be running for re-election as village president. I may consider another trustee seat, but I need to focus on my career and other obligations. So it's been great,
All right.
and obviously there's months and months ahead. So, but that's all I had.
2 more months of service, thank you.
Mhm. Steve, anything?
I'm good.
Deb?
I just want to remind people about the community appreciation dinner, which will be at the Masonic Temple. I thought it was going to be at 2, but apparently advertising said it's at noon. So until the food runs out, basically a big spaghetti feed for everyone in the community, and much appreciated that everyone who would like to can show up. Any donations will go to a couple of the nonprofits that are here in the village and town to help them, and I'll just be sweating myself in the kitchen. That's it. So please come Sunday starting at noon. Thank you.
All right. And I guess just one little addendum to, so if anyone is thinking of running, I mean, it's been a really great experience. And I think if anyone out there is even just thinking about it, try it. Because I went into this almost completely blind, and it's been a great learning experience, and I think a lot of people could benefit, and I think this village could benefit from a lot of new, fresh perspectives. So, I mean, I'll be willing to talk to anybody who wants to ask what it's like. So, that's all. So, we have executive session. Do we have the motions? Does
Do we?
somebody?
Are there motions? I
Oh.
didn't see
I
anything.
was here last week, so I
I
didn't
don't
have
have
to.
a sheet.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
All right.
Uh-oh.
I don't have my sheet.
But he's got a card.
Labor relations.
Mine's in my house.
Okay,
Did you make those?
I'll make the motion that we
Use them again.
enter into an executive session to discuss labor relations. And invite into that session the village council, the municipal manager, and are we inviting HR?
Yes,
And then HR,
Sorry.
unless you don't want to be here.
That's fine.
We shouldn't be long.
Are you gonna make an announcement after or not?
It's very possible, yes.
All right, I'll be
And-
then.
and find that premature general knowledge may clearly place the municipality at a substantial disadvantage. I'll entertain a second for that.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No,
Do I need the second one also, or
I think
not?
so.
Pardon me?
I think we need a second motion to go into, actually, in.
No? Okay, I
Yeah.
move that the board enter into an executive session to discuss contracts and labor relations. And include in that session the village council, the municipal manager, the HR representative, under provisions Title I, Section 313A, one of the Vermont state statutes.
Second.
All right. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hey, Ray, the village needs a moderator.
No, there was no reason to unplug those. This was all powered down, there was no lights on those mics.
Yeah.
The lights
Okay,
are
well,
pro-
we're gonna make an announcement.
We're superstitious creatures. So we don't.
I just
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
trust it.
If the green light's not on, there's no electricity from the device.
Okay.
It can't
Oh,
pick up
but they-
sound.
they were on.
It's called
It
paranoia.
wasn't, this whole
That's what
apparatus is
it is.
unplugged.
It's not
There was no
superstitious.
electricity.
Okay, whatever.
It's a gentler word.
Is it? Yeah, paranoia.
Oops.
I've seen some select board members that are feeling.
All right. So we have a motion.
Motion, ready? Right. I move to approve the proposed agreement between the Bellows Falls Village Corporation and Local 410 of the New England Police Benevolent Association for the period July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2020, and authorize the village president and municipal manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the village, subject to approval of the final agreement version by the village attorney.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yep.
Very good. All right, and that
Thank you, Deb,
concludes-
for all the work you did on that.
Oh, welcome. I mean, came in late.
Thank you, Ray.
All right,
Thank you, Ray.
And that should be all for tonight. A motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.